What absolute buffoon decided it would be a good idea to drink a strong stout on a hot summer's day? Ah yes, that would be me. Hello and welcome back to the channel, and yes, despite it being a touch warm in here, I've decided we need to get back onto the big, strong, intense stouts because, well, as much as I'm happy to kind of get rid of them as soon as the sun arrives, it doesn't take very long for me to miss them entirely, and that's what is happening right now. And today we've got one from what has been, I guess, in the last 4 years, one of the absolute best craft beer producers, especially when it comes to big, deep, rich stouts, New Bristol Brewery. However, there has been some debate over the last kind of 12 months as to whether they've lost their way. Now, rumour has it they had a new brewer come in and it didn't go very well and they've then been replaced. I don't know how true that is, but anyway, this can is about, well, does it say? Well, it's about 6 months old, so I don't know where this falls in terms of their arrangement. We're going to find out whether this is a good one or not, at the very least. It is their big Cinder Toffee Stout. Now, that may sound familiar because New Bristol Brewery's Cinder Toffee Stout was basically headline worthy in the beer world. It just took everyone by storm, and I want to say it was very good, but I didn't actually try it until a bit later, and it was okay, is all I'll really say. This time though, it's the big Cinder Toffee Stout. It's not an impy, as you might have imagined. It's actually a 6.5% stout, and the kind of tagline to it is a blowtorched honeycomb. That's it, just blowtorched honeycomb. Before we crack into it though, here is a quick look at the can. I mean, all their artwork is always absolutely fantastic. It often takes inspiration from kind of their surroundings at Bristol. This one, I don't think so much. This is giving kind of Planet of the Apes vibes. Spin it around there. It's very nice artwork indeed, and if I put the can a little bit closer, you can probably see their logo at the top there, Hands on Beer. It just looks, yeah, very appetizing. What am I expecting from this though, just before I crack it open? Well, I'm wanting something that is sweet, is rich, has good mouthfeel, but also isn't over the top. It's not a big, heavy impy. It's 6.5%, which is, while certainly not sessionable, it's within the realms of relative normality at this point in time. So, you know, I want something that feels like a well put together beer where it's balanced. Balance really is the key word. Now, I have to say, if I was to pick like a style and an ABV to go together to form what could be my favourite of all time, kind of a 6% region stout is it, and this sounds bang on the money. How much the adjuncts will play a part will be interesting to see. In that original one I had, well, I say the kind of the original version of this, the lower ABV, just Cinder Toffee Stout, it was a bit sweet, if I'm honest. It did feel a little bit synthetic in parts. I'm hoping, I don't know, something about this, well, I'm not holding out too much hope, but I feel like maybe, just maybe, upping the ABV might balance it out a bit. So let's find out. Oh, the aroma on open is superb, super like caramelly almost, kind of like creme caramel. Oh, it's unavoidable, it's filling the room. All right then. Nearly all in the glass. I'm having a run of distinctly bad pours at the minute. Don't know whether it's to do with kind of like the temperature difference. Obviously cans are cold, room's pretty warm. This one I did let warm up quite a bit actually, because 6.5% stout, you don't want it at kind of the 6 or 7 degrees that my fridge is kept at, so it's probably kind of more like 8, 9, 10 at this point in time, but let's get it all in there. Right then, visually, and I've not been able to do this with a stout for a while because I've just not reviewed one, but oh yeah, that is the hallmark for me of a properly good stout. When I put it up to this big studio light, you can't, I mean, you might be able to tell from that, but there is not a sliver of light bleeding through there. That is a properly pitch black stout, which in my book is already, well, it's a double thumbs up on appearance at the very least. That aroma is still coming off the beer. I can't avoid it. It's big, sweet. It is possibly too sweet as a kind of an initial reaction, but it smells delicious, it has to be said. Super sweet. Oh, and that kind of creme caramel thing. You know what I mean? The little pots that are kind of like custardy stuff with caramel on the top. It smells just like one of those. Other aromas, you probably guessed this already, but there's not a great deal more to talk about. It does deepen down though, I have to say. As soon as you get your nose really in there, proper burnt cinder toffee does start to come through. There's that kind of top super sweet layer of caramel, and then something a bit more, I guess, full-bodied, rich, depthy, slightly toasted burnt almost. Which was their intention apparently. So that does smell absolutely fantastic. Bit sweet perhaps, but yeah, generally speaking, absolutely on the money. So let's give it a go, shall we? Cheers. Interesting. That is genuinely way more complex than I thought it was going to be. Based on, again, the kind of original lower ABV version, that was well put together, but just lacked a bit of intensity maybe in parts. This is singing a bit more in the right direction, let's say. I'm not wowed by it. I have had better kind of Cinder Toffee style stouts before, but never at 6.5%, and that is a slightly different ball game that we're playing with there. So what I do have to say is that I'm actually digging just the kind of the breadth of the beer. It starts off really sweet, very much as it was on the nose, and then you kind of climb through and you get to this midpoint where you're like, you know what, this is starting to taste quite a lot like the stout, which I know it's going to sound a bit daft, but sometimes big adjunct beers like this, just the sweetness kind of runs all the way through, and you might be able to pick out a little bit of malt here and there, but it's really just kind of tips of the hat. It's not really the full beer experience. By midway on the palate, you're already going, okay, nice, slightly dark, toasty, mineral heavy stout qualities, and you know it's there, and you go, okay, it'd be interesting to see how this goes from this point. Is it just going to get sweet again? But no. So what actually happens after that point, towards the back of the tongue, and when you swallow it, you get an intense amount of kind of what I call good quality adjunct-free stout notes, which, again, we're just kind of throwing superlatives around. Superlative. Never said that word before. Anyway, you know what I mean. We're just starting to throw words around that kind of are becoming a bit of word soup and a mishmash, but in reality, it's developing. It's starting to go a bit of licorice, some berries, some really deep, big roasty notes. And I just wasn't expecting it with what is ultimately a adjunct-focused beer. The only way I'm going to do this any justice is with a proper top-to-bottom taste test, so let's do that right now. So, initially, very mild carbonation. Slightly bitter on the front of the tongue, actually, which is unusual for such an adjunct-heavy beer. And then that first third of the tongue, it is just that super sweet but delicious kind of caramel, custard, creme caramel thing from the aroma. It's there, and it's just really enjoyable, actually, I have to say. It's, yes, very synthetic, but it does deliver a certain pleasing quality, which when you're buying a beer with that written on it, you're not going to hate. Let's be honest. If you really don't want an adjunct stout, you're not going to buy this. So it doesn't really matter, and it is very nice indeed. Then moving on to the middle bit, the sweetness is still there, but you start to get, as I said before, some deep, dark roastiness from the malts. A bit of an irony thing, think kind of, trad, stouts, Guinness, stuff like that. And just some more general mineral qualities. Feels very clean actually mid-palate. Normally adjunct heavy stouts get a bit sticky, get a bit cloying, but no, super clean right in the middle there. And then as it hits the back, interestingly, the carbonation seems to spritz up again. It is a bit dancey. It is maybe a little bit more carbonated than I would have expected. Not a lot, guaranteed, but it still feels a little bit lively, and it starts to build then. It's almost not until you've swallowed it that you start to get that real intensity. But the second that you have, again, as I said, dark fruits, red berries, licorice, that super deep and dark, wonderful avenue of stout making, it's all there. Think proper, trad, unfiltered, the really depthy stuff. And It's all in there. Bit of a milk stout quality, I think, based on, well, to be honest, the mouthfeel is, it's not thick, maybe not as thick as I would have liked it at 6.5%, but it's certainly not bad. But if you look at it in the glass, it's not really what you'd call thick. It's okay, but the mouthfeel feels a little bit better than it looks, which makes me think maybe it is a lactose beer or some sort of kind of vegan friendly equivalent. I'm sure we'll find out when we take a look at the can in a minute, but it gets to that point. But then kind of the prolonged aftertaste, once you've got through all that really intense stout bit, you are left with this burnt cinder toffee, subtle, soft, and alarmingly still quite bitter, actually. It's, I mean, if you burnt cinder toffee, you burnt toffee, it's going to be a bit bitter, and it absolutely is. This bitterness lingers, almost like it would with a heavily hopped IPA, but it's a different bitterness. It's deep, it's dark, it's earthy, it's roasty, it's bonfire toffee stuff, you know, all of that. And I don't want to say that this is necessarily the most well put together beer, because it feels a little bit disjointed at times. Super sweet up front, then kind of what I call kind of classic easygoing stout notes, then super intense stout notes, and then lingering back off to something that's both sweet and very bitter. I'm quite enjoying that journey and that difference, and to sit there sipping it is, I'm having a good time, but each of those sections feel distinctly different to one another, to the point where it's hard to call this like kind of a cohesive drinking experience, if you like. So, but I'll be honest, do I give it a double thumbs up? Yeah, just makes a double thumbs up, because all of those flavours on their own, none of them are bad, and they're all very enjoyable. So as long as you like, I guess, the breadth of stouts in the world, as in super sweet, straight up kind of mineral heavy, then deep dark and roasty, and then all the way through to kind of that really bitter, pithy burnt note, then you're going to have a good time with this either way. So yeah, it's a double thumbs up from me right here, right now. Before we wrap this up though, let's take a quick look at the can. So on the front it says, New Bristol Brewery, hands-on beers, big Cinder Toffee Stout, blow-torched honeycomb. There you go, definitely fiery at the end there. 6.5% ABV, born and brewed in Bristol, contains barley, oats, wheat and lactose. That's the first time in a long time I've called lactose and got it right, so I'm very happy with myself there. And it says, it tastes like Friday. The hops are East Kent Goldings, very trad, which is interesting, just for a bit of bitterness, I would assume. And it says, the bigger, crunchier version of our award-winning Cinder Toffee Stout, described as liquidized crunchy bars in a stout, smooth, decadent, and deliciously indulgent. Store cold, drink fresh. Well, it's not super fresh, that, but on a dark stout like that, I really don't think you need to. As an overall takeaway, if you like complex stouts but with a bit of sweetness to keep you kind of coming back to it, yeah, I think you're going to really enjoy it. If you're not a big stout fan, I'd start with the lesser, the lower ABV. It's a bit sweeter, it's a bit softer, it's a bit less intense, and then you can make your mind up whether you want to step up to the big brother. But for me, yeah, I'm glad I reviewed it despite the frankly ridiculous heat in this room today. And that really is all I've got to say about it. So as always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you haven't already, subscribe if you'll be so kind, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.